This story is not for the faint-hearted. If you are, then it's time to press that pause button and turn back. This is an utterly disturbing incident that left me in shambles. I'm a mortician. After medical school, I joined a funeral home in my local town. The first few weeks were fine. The only issue was the after-hours cleaning, because the janitor was out of town for some reason. But still, I didn't complain. After finishing my job, I dutifully burnt all the waste in the basement incinerator. During my medical school days, I've had so many corpse experiences that I could easily stand any gruesome-looking corpse without throwing up or getting scared. Seeing a dead hand tremble, a big toe wiggle, a sudden twitching of the eyes were no big deal to me. I called it the final spark, which generally occurs during the embalming stage. These little details are going to be relevant later. It was a dull Wednesday afternoon, and I was working in the morgue with my new buddy Samuel. He was a 5'11", dark-haired man who lost the battle of life to cancer. I was puncturing the organs in the abdomen to let the gas and fluid out when I heard footsteps in the corridor. I turned back and saw a man standing at the door with a smile on his face and a mop in his hand. "G'day, sir. I'm Jonathan, the janitor. You must be the new doctor." I smiled and said, "Nice to meet you, Jonathan, but I'm no doctor. I don't really save lives." Don't know if he got my sarcasm, but he gave me a people-pleasing giggle and said, "I was out for my sister's wedding. It must have been tiring for you to do all the cleaning after such long shifts. But you don't have to worry anymore. I'm back now." I thanked him for showing concern and got back to work. Jonathan walked away while mopping the corridor. Thank goodness I didn't have to stay after work for the cleanings anymore. Once I was done, I put the corpse in the freezer and left right away. Jonathan cleaned everything and locked up the funeral home before leaving. He even arrived before me, so a lot of the extra responsibilities were lifted from my shoulders. One thing I liked about Jonathan was that he kept to himself and never bothered me. One day I was doing paperwork when the owner called me. He said that a new corpse was about to arrive. A close friend of his lost his daughter recently. He also told me that I must do a perfect job so that they can say their final goodbye to their darling daughter. I asked him the cause of her death, to which he told me that she committed suicide. The girl hung herself from the ceiling of her room. I told him that it won't be difficult to prepare her as her body would probably be intact, but the owner interrupted me saying, "Actually, there's a little issue." I sensed the tension in his voice, so I asked, "What is it?" He paused for a bit and said, "The sudden pressure on her neck has made her tongue stick out. Excuse me. I don't know how to put it, but you have to make her look the way she did. Her parents are shattered." I understood the gravity of this situation and assured him that I will do my best. The body arrived shortly after. I went through her file for more details. The girl's name was Kelly and she was just 17 years old. I felt bad for her and her parents. She was lying on the table zipped up inside a plastic bag. I changed into my gloves and usual uniform and opened the bag to take a look at her. By now, you all have gotten a clear idea that death doesn't shock me anymore. But as her face showed up, a sudden gasp came out of my mouth. Kelly was lying still. She was looking at the ceiling with her wide, pale blue eyes. Her curly blonde hair still smelled of shampoo, but her mouth... God, I will never forget that. 60% of her tongue was hanging out of her mouth and resting on her chest. My description does not do it justice, as the sight was way more horrible than my words. It took me some time to get my shit back together. I went to my desk and had some water. The embalming table stood behind me. I finally calmed myself down and turned around to go back. Believe me or not, I found Kelly's head tilted in my direction. She was looking at me with a lively stare while her tongue hung from the edge of the table. I blamed the sudden change of position on rigor mortis and walked to the table. I then moved her face to the previous position and began my work. I opened her mouth using a gag and started putting her tongue back inside. I had to glue her lips so that by any sudden movement, The tongue never comes out. I also glued her eyes. Then, I washed and cleaned her. After making the incision, I sat on a chair nearby and watched her bloody fluids draining out. Once the fluids drained out, I got up to inject the formaldehyde-based chemicals to finish the embalming process. While doing so, I heard Jonathan's voice behind me. "It's sad to see a young lady fade away, isn't it, Doctor?" Even though I told him to not call me a doctor, he did anyway. I replied in a low voice, "Yes, it is." "How old was she?" 17. Jeez, death is cruel. He exhaled in disappointment and started mopping the floor. I finished up within a few hours and left. I bought some new paints on my way home to deck her up the next morning. That entire night I couldn't sleep, as all I could think about was Kelly. I kept drawing pictures in my mind, thinking how she was when she was alive. The next day at work, I discovered something very weird. I found Kelly's eyes and mouth wide open. Not just that, there were bruises on her wrists, as if she put pressure on her hands. Yes, I know it sounds impossible, and no, I wasn't intoxicated. I again glued her mouth and eyes without thinking much about this, but at the back of my mind, I felt something wasn't right with this corpse. No matter how I placed it, it kept changing its position when I wasn't looking. Things took an eerie turn. I was getting highly disturbed by all this. I don't believe in ghosts, so I decided to get to the bottom of this. I placed a security camera inside the morgue to see what exactly happens here at night. I didn't tell anyone about this because everyone would have called me crazy. The next morning, I rushed to work to see last night's footage. I sat in my cabin and logged into the laptop. The first few hours, I didn't see anything. Kelly kept lying on the embalming table, covered under a white sheet. There was no one in the room, and everything was quiet. But suddenly, the morgue door opened, and a man walked in. I knew this man. He walked to Kelly and lifted the cover in one go. What he did next disgusted me to the core. He started running his fingers on Kelly's cheeks, and then leaned on her to do more obscene things that I can't even speak of. I couldn't watch anymore. I sat on the chair, hiding my face in my palms. I was shocked. All this time, it was Jonathan. He's the reason why Kelly had those bruises on her arms. I rushed to the washroom and vomited, thinking how sick this man was. I had no idea that behind the people-pleasing smile lurks a necrophiliac. I wanted to beat the hell out of him for pulling off this shameful behavior, but before handing him over to the cops, I planned to catch him in the act. Be it dead or alive, she's just a 17-year-old girl who had already suffered enough. I told Jonathan I was leaving early. Little did he know I was going to come back after dinner. I left the window in my office open. At around 9 p.m., I sneaked inside from there and waited for the culprit to come back. After 10 to 15 minutes, I heard the main door open. Footsteps appeared in the hallway. I quickly turned on the laptop to watch his every move. Jonathan entered the morgue and took off the cover from the embalming table. Kelly was lying on the table like before. He leaned onto her face, and just then the security camera malfunctioned. Glitches appeared on the screen, and it turned black. Before I could act on it, I heard a spine-chilling scream outside. I bolted out of the office and started to run towards the morgue. As I reached near the door, I found it locked. Jonathan was screaming in excruciating pain. I could hear a commotion going on inside the morgue, like he was struggling for his life. The lights of the entire funeral home started to flicker like crazy, and heavy wind came from the rattling windows. I tried my best to open the door, but I couldn't. This continued for a few more minutes, and then everything became dead silent. The morgue door opened on its own after that. I rushed inside to see broken glasses dispersed on the floor and equipment scattered here and there. It was a mess. My eyes went to the left corner of the room, and I froze on the ground. Jonathan was lying on the floor dead. His jaw was broken, as if a strong force smashed it in one go. Blood was coming out of his mouth like a fountain, and above all that, he had no tongue. I slowly walked close to the table to take a look at Kelly. She was lying still, like she always did. Her eyes and mouth were wide open again. But this time, I found something more. Inside her mouth rested a chunk of a bloody human tongue that wasn't hers. I called the cops and provided them with the footage that I could gather, but Jonathan's death remained unsolved. After all, no law in this universe is capable to punish a corpse with murder charges. If you ask me, I strongly feel like he got what he deserved, and Kelly took her revenge.